So it's 2023. We're 10 days in and we're not off to a good start. A lot of fights are getting canceled already and a lot is going on in the MMA community. So the first main event of the year gets canceled. Kelvin Gastelum gets a mouth injury. He's not fighting Imavov anymore, but Strickland is. Aljamain Sterling apparently isn't ready for March 4th against Henry Cejudo. Cejudo is ready, and that's when the UFC wanted to fight, UFC 285. And 285 is left without a proper main event. And on top of that, Ngannou, who could have been on that card against John Jones, apparently may be a free agent now, like after January 20th. So that card is lost. So I'm going to first go over the Strickland Imavov situation. So, wow. Wow. Sean Strickland is an absolute unit, man. Not all heroes wear capes. And Sean Strickland, I absolutely commend you for saving this fight night. Because if they couldn't get Imavov a replacement, they probably would have bumped Ketlin Vieira versus Raquel Pennington to the main event spot, which no one would have wanted that. So not even myself is like a big WMA advocate. So good matchup. And it's crazy how Strickland went from like being the last main event of 2022. And now in like 2 weeks or 4 weeks, he's like the first main event of 2023. And he's taking on Nasruddin Imavov. This matchup is very interesting. And Imavov was 100% going to beat Kelvin Gastelum because Gastelum is done. Israel Adesanya ruined Kelvin Gastelum. He hasn't been the same since. I didn't expect him with this recent run Kelvin's been on, this recent downslope. I didn't expect him to do any better against the young, strong, dangerous, up-and-coming Nasruddin. But Sean Strickland, I believe, is better than Kelvin Gastelum, and I believe he is a tougher matchup than Kelvin Gastelum. And this is actually going to be at 205 because this is last minute. Strickland can't make the weight on time, so interesting fight. But I think what makes Strickland such a tough matchup for Nasruddin is he's got more experience overall in his MMA career. And he's got more experience as well over like 5 rounds. And he's known to actually have better cardio than Imavov, whereas Nasruddin showed to slow down a little bit late against Joaquin Buckley. Now, he's been preparing for 5 rounds against Kelvin. He wasn't prepared against Joaquin, so I'm sure his cardio for this fight will be much better and maybe better than his last fight, but it's something to look out for. Like, if he can't get Strickland out of there early, which I highly doubt he will, because he ain't no Poatan, and Strickland's not going to melt like Edmund Shabazian, I don't know. If he doesn't get an early finish and it goes past like the first couple of rounds, it's going to be interesting. I think Strickland has the boxing advantage, but overall the kicking will go to Imavov. He's got better footwork. His striking is a lot more unorthodox. And Imavov is a very well-rounded fighter because not only can he outstrike you, he can also out-grapple you, but Strickland has very good takedown defense. So I don't expect Imavov to be able to implement his grappling successfully. Sean won't shoot for takedowns, so the grappling cancels each other out. It's mainly going to be a stand-up fight between these two. And I think it'll be a very close fight initially, and Imavov might have a head start. But I'm going to predict that Strickland's going to get stronger as the rounds go on. Imavov might lose some steam. And as it goes on, I just think Strickland's going to pick it up and probably start landing the better, cleaner, more effective shots on Imavov. And I think his boxing will shine throughout the fight as opposed to Imavov's kicks. Imavov won't be able to take him down. I mean, maybe he will, but if he does, he's not keeping him down. Strickland's hard to take down. I don't know. I don't think he's going to outbox Strickland. And I don't know if he'll out-tough Sean Strickland. You know, Strickland lately is being very underrated because of the Alex Pereira fight. And I think people are sleeping on Sean Strickland in this fight. But I'm going to say Strickland wins. I could be wrong. This could be dumb because Imavov is elite. Like, he is a legit fighter. He's no joke. He's really good. And I could easily see him winning this fight. And the universe works in mysterious ways because Imavov had nothing to gain from the Gastelum fight other than like name value, right? So he could beat Gastelum, but he's on a losing streak. I mean, so is Strickland, but like Kelvin was like a rank behind. Strickland is like top 7. So this is a chance for Imavov to beat a top 7 middleweight while being ranked number 12. If he beats Sean Strickland, then I think this opens up the opportunity for him to then get a top 5, top 3 middleweight and get bumped up and maybe get like a boost in the top 3. Maybe he beats Strickland and then they match him up against Cannonier, Costa. Let's say he beats either one of them, then he's like the top 3 contender and close to a title shot. So I can't wait to see what happens, but I'm going to say Strickland gets the upset in a close decision, 48-47, but it'll be a very competitive scrap, but we shall see. Now, moving on to other news, Aljamain Sterling is not ready for March 4th, which I'm very disappointed in. Sterling has a bicep injury. I mean, he's had it for a while. It's been lingering, so he's not ready. And Cejudo is, so... And UFC 285 is lost because Ngannou's clearly not going to fight. John Jones clearly isn't going to fight. They said Blades was the alternate if the Ngannou fight wouldn't work out. Well, why aren't they working on Curtis Blades versus John Jones for March 4th? What's the holdup? If Ngannou's like a free agent, what the hell is the holdup? But whatever. So we could have at least had Sterling versus Cejudo March 4th as like a backup main event, but we don't have that. But the good news is Sean O'Malley's game. He's ready. He's opponentless. And he's like the next challenger outside of Cejudo, like a ranked guy in the bantamweight division. He's ranked number 1. And he's like that next guy who could be fighting for the belt, if not Aljo, or sorry, if not Cejudo. Both these guys have bad blood. So I think it's the fight to make. Henry Cejudo versus Sean O'Malley. They got to settle that beef and make it for the interim belt. It's going to add some spice to that division. Let Aljo heal his bicep. And then the winner of Cejudo O'Malley then can fight Sterling in the summer. Sounds good to me. But I wish Aljo was ready, but I hope they figure something out. Henry's saying he's back, though. Like, he's ready. So I think Cejudo might fight on March 4th regardless. And I think O'Malley being sort of a star in the UFC now, I think that would be a big fight. And that could be a massive pay-per-view for sure. But man, Aljo's got to be one of the luckiest fighters ever on the roster, eh? I mean, he kind of fluked his way into a championship with Jan with the illegal knee, which gifted him the DQ win in the belt. And then the rematch happens last minute. Jan doesn't have a corner, like his original cornermen couldn't show up. So Jan was almost cornerless. And then that affected his performance. And then Aljo squeaked a split decision that could have gone the other way. And then he fights TJ, who arguably on paper should have been a bad matchup for himself. But TJ shows up on one shoulder. Aljo dominates, destroys him. What if something happens where it's like Sterling was going to lose to Henry, but he can't show up on March 4th. And then Cejudo takes the O'Malley fight. And then Sean O'Malley ends up beating Henry Cejudo, who would have beat Sterling. And then Sterling catches a break, gets a stylistically favorable matchup for himself in O'Malley, and then beats O'Malley in his 3rd title defense. That'd be insane. Like, how many breaks can Aljamain Sterling keep catching? I'm not trying to give Sterling flack. You know, I mean, I have mixed feelings about Sterling. Like, sometimes I feel like I don't like the guy, but at the same time, I kind of do. I do respect him. Great fighter. He's not a bad guy either. I'm just kind of against him due to the whole thing with Jan. But then again, it's not his fault. But I really want to see Henry Cejudo versus Aljamain Sterling. That matchup really interests me. So I hope that, you know, upon Cejudo's return, he does get to fight Sean O'Malley first, which actually this might be better for Henry Cejudo because O'Malley is not as dangerous as Aljamain Sterling currently. At least I don't think he is. I think it's a better matchup for Henry to come back to and a good warm-up fight to prepare him for Aljo. Get that rust off by beating Sugar Sean O'Malley's ass. And then once that rust is gone, he's back, he's active. Then it's time to get that Aljo fight going. And that Sterling fight becomes a lot bigger. And right now, Cejudo versus either Sugar or Funkmaster, those are the 2 biggest fights you could ever make in the men's bantamweight division. I'm looking forward to seeing how this whole thing unfolds. But I pray 285 gets a good main event because they are lacking right now. I mean, they got a lot of other fights on the card. I mean, 10 fights, really. but the standout fights, apparently they're working on Gaethje physique. I'm not going to believe it until Gaethje finally stops running, takes off those track shoes, grows a pair, and faces physique. He's been ducking him for ages. And then what else is on there? Oh, Bo Nickel, Jamie Pickett, but who the F cares about that fight, right? Really, nobody gives a F about Pickett versus Bo Nickel. We know Bo's going to run through him, so it doesn't matter. We need some big fights. We need title fights, okay? So I will settle for O'Malley Cejudo as a headliner for an interim belt. I do not care. But this card needs to be saved, or the UFC can call Ciryl Gane and offer him John Jones. And if John is being difficult, do Curtis Blades versus Ciryl Gane at UFC 285. But speaking of which, the heavyweight division, the heavyweight title picture. So Ngannou is testing out free agency. I mean, he has been for a while, but I'm hearing that January 20th, that he's a free agent and he can do what he wants. So it looks like Ngannou's not going to resign with the UFC because he just can't get a deal going. The UFC, they're not going to pay him what he's worth. So Ngannou, the best heavyweight in the world in the prime of his career, who's ever evolving, is about to leave the cream of the crop organization across all of MMA, which is the UFC, which is unfortunate. I really wish the UFC would pay the man. But at the same time, I wish Ngannou, had a different approach to this whole situation instead of being demanding, inactive, and wanting to leave. I would like Ngannou to stick around, man. I really would. But I understand money talks, so I respect Ngannou for that. But it's unfortunate, man. We all wanted Jones versus Ngannou, and I was a fool for thinking that we were actually going to get Sterling Cejudo co-main. But, it's not a money thing. It's more so an injury thing. And then main event, Jones and Ngannou. But nope. Ngannou is demanding a high paycheck. The UFC is not willing to give it to him. And John Jones is also difficult to deal with. So, of course, they wouldn't be able to make that matchup on time. So, yeah. And also, Ngannou was seen on an Instagram post with his family where they're wearing like PFL shirts. So, that might be a sign that Ngannou could be going to the PFL. And Coach Shelton Harrison, shout out to that brother. Be sure to subscribe to his channel. He even did a video covering this, saying that Ngannou might go to the PFL, and he thinks that they could do Jones versus Ngannou in the PFL, which I highly doubt. I don't think the UFC is going to let that happen. They're not going to take the biggest fight you could. They're not going to let the biggest fight you could possibly make happen anywhere else but the UFC. There's just no way. So I don't think they're going to let John Jones go, but they don't care about Ngannou, so they're going to let him go. Ngannou in the PFL will be interesting because I do think he'll take over the PFL heavyweight division and be heavyweight champ there, but I'd rather him be in the UFC. But now this contradicts my champ by the end of the year prediction. I picked Ngannou to hold the belt by the end of this year, which is going to be wrong now because Ngannou isn't going to be fighting in the UFC by the end of the year, clearly. So what does the heavyweight title picture look like? Who could be the next champion? If Jones fights Blades, I'm going to favor John Jones to fight Curtis Blades because he just has too many tools. He's a better striker than Curtis. He's elusive enough to evade the power and really good takedown defense, good balance. I don't see Curtis being able to impose his wrestling on Jones. But if he fights Ciryl Gane, I think Gane beats Jones. But if Gane and Blades fight, I could see Curtis Blades, wrestle screwing Gane to a decision and becoming champion. So depending on which matchups are made, Jones will be champ off Blades. Blades will be champ off of Gane. Gane will be champ off Jones. But who knows? What if they even throw Sergey Pavlovich in the mix? Honestly, I don't think Pavlovich beats any of them except for John Jones. He beats Jones probably because he has the same reach, same height, a lot of power. Jones hasn't fought in a while. He's probably going to be rusty as hell. But Gane beats Sergey and Blades destroys Sergey. But yeah, that's what I think. So we're going to have a different heavyweight champ by the end of the year. I believe Gane is the second best in the division, although I said Blades beats him, which is weird because styles make fights and Blades is a bad matchup for him. And if they fight now in 2023, it might be too soon for Ciryl Gane because he might not have a lot of time to fully adjust his wrestling defense. Whereas if they fight maybe a year from now, I could see game getting it done, but we shall see. I can just imagine Blades could possibly be champ like very soon, which would be nice to see Curtis get the belt, but I kind of want Game to get it, if not John Jones. Bummed about Ngannou leaving, but I get it. Bummed about Aljo not being ready. And, I don't really care about the Imavov Gaslam fight. I like the Strickland Imavov fight better. Strickland's a G for taking this fight. Thank you, Sean Strickland, for saving the day. Let's hope they get this thing rolling with the bantamweight division and they make an interim title fight. The next biggest fight after Sterling Cejudo, which is O'Malley Cejudo. And then, I hope they figure something out with the heavyweight division as well. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Like and subscribe, and peace out.